The Way It's Played. October 11, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. I have been busy today nailing down details of the game. This is their game, not ours. We have to learn to play it and deduce the rule book as we go, but having observed their twisted but consistent logic for decades certainly helps. They lie. We tell the truth. They accuse us of lying. They do something criminal. We object. They accuse us of their crime. This is the hallmark of what they always do, and the order in which they do it. Their entire modus operandi boils down to this: accuse others of doing what you do yourself, pretend to be your enemies, and by your own bad behavior heap condemnation on them. For example, the unfolding scandal in Pearl River, Louisiana. A priest caught red-bottomed on the altar of St. Peter and Paul's, cavorting with two dominatrix women. And filming it all for posterity. Oh, my. But if you think that priest is a good Catholic boy, think again. He's a Satanist who has sung all the right songs, told all the right lies, simpered his way through any amount of dull canonical law and orders of the day, until in Satanist terms, he's a made man. You can't be a priest of Satan until you are ordained as a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. Given the growth of the Church of Satan over the past 50 years, it makes total sense that the Catholic Church is inundated with unsavory candidates for the priesthood. Priests of Satan get all the earthly goodies, all the sex, all the drugs, all the money and power, while the actual priests get gruel for supper and celibacy and suffering, and then get worked to death on top of it. All pleasure and rest is for later, someday, in heaven. Taken together, these two different groups of priests play out the extremes of the duality of creation, good and bad personified. And it's hard to tell the difference, because the priests of Satan have learned to play their part to utter perfection. They know all the secrets of their opponents in the Roman Catholic priesthood, plus all their own little tricks of the trade. It is a given that some high priests of Satan are also high up in the clergy of the Roman Catholic Church. They have spent their entire adult lives as penultimate hypocrites, for the purpose of grooming new priests of Satan and protecting the clandestine activities of their church within a church. Next week you will find this defrocked priest playing some other role. Maybe he'll be a Muslim with a long, scraggly bushy red beard and eyebrows to match, shouting with apparent fervor about the glories of Allah and the sins of the infidels, while sneaking around raping little girls. This is how they play their game. This is how this one group of people has managed to spread so much hatred, so many lies, and so much violence and fear throughout the world, by telling whoppers and by pretending to be what they are not. Look at the current situation. We have all sorts of U.S. citizens, and citizens of the United States, both, pretending to be Americans. And predictably, the Americans are being blamed for what the U.S. citizens and citizens of the United States have done. This is predictable. This is par for their course. So, look for it, recognize it for what it is, and deal with the fact that nothing is what it appears to be. A priest is not necessarily a priest. A Republican is not necessarily a Republican. And a Jew is not necessarily a Jew. Turn up your God-given Shinola sensor. After the indecency charges of the Pearl River case are wrangled through, this purported priest from Louisiana will disappear and become someone different and new, and he'll go on wreaking havoc and promoting sexual perversion and lying his way from job to job and place to place, always misrepresenting himself as anyone and anything but a Satanist, even though that is what he is. Grandma has seen these vipers before, and so have you, whether you consciously realize it or not. The sons of Cain created cities in the land of Nod, where everyone is sleeping, right? And to this day, these individuals are busy running the empire of the cities, the inner city of London, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. They are just as dishonest and deceitful, vain and selfish, and given to double-speak, as their forefathers. They use all the same means to delude, to enslave, to abuse, and to impersonate their victims as their ancestors did. They constantly congratulate themselves about how stupid and trusting and lazy we are. How else could we let them substitute for our actual government? How else could we be deceived into thinking that credit is the same as money? And how could we let them control either the money or the credit? Another hallmark of these humans is that they have no actual compassion. This is ironic, as they often portray themselves as the soppiest bleeding hearts that ever lived. While holding tight to the supply of money and guaranteeing poverty for most of the world, these hypocrites take to the streets and decry the living conditions they cause. Yes, you read that right. They speak up, loudly, in opposition to the deplorable living conditions that they cause, and behind the scenes, they work night and day to make sure that these conditions continue. Thus the rats responsible for the poverty and misery of so many others raise the hue and cry of social justice, and appear to be advocates of the poor, while in fact they are holding the purse strings and making sure the poor continue to suffer. That's what actually goes on in Washington, D.C. and Rome and London. Next time you hear Pope Francis talking about the miseries of the poor, and the diseased, and the victims of war, and also about the ruined environment and so many other maladies, bear in mind that you are looking at the richest and most powerful man in the world, and know that if he actually wanted to end these conditions, he could easily do so in a fortnight. And observe that he doesn't do so. He invests in George Soros instead. Faithful Catholics gave this man $500 million to spend himself, personally on directly alleviating the sufferings he talks about, and instead, he spent it on new bank buildings, Hollywood movies, and luxury condos in Switzerland. Go figure. Take a good look at the poverty and misery rampant in Nancy Pelosi's Senate district and ask yourself, how is this possible? A 78% high school failure rate? Human feces on the sidewalk? Zoned-out junkies wandering aimlessly from cardboard box to cardboard box? Self-evidently, Nancy Pelosi, who spends trillions of dollars every year, is a liar and a hypocrite. Obviously, she doesn't actually give a damn about anyone in her Senate district. She isn't accomplishing anything worthwhile for them, and yet, despite the evidence, her constituents continue to be deceived by her rhetoric and air of confident superiority. Like a witch casting a spell, or a spider in its web, Nancy Pelosi lulls her victims into a set of comfortable but incorrect assumptions. From all her words and her ingratiating smiles, they take it for granted that she understands what they are going through and sympathizes with them, and it never occurs to them that she knows about their miseries, because she is causing them. She is, in fact, doing everything she can to make sure that these nasty conditions in her Senate district continue and get worse. Just like her pal, Governor Newsom. And she tunes up the progressive rhetoric at the same time she denies funding to alleviate the suffering she is causing. It would be bad enough if this were the stock in trade of just a few bad eggs, but it is not. Politicians in both political parties do the same exact thing, with the net result that this entire country is needlessly and endlessly suffering. Recognizing Satanists is actually pretty easy. As Jesus said a long time ago, you judge them by their fruits, never their words. Their actions and the results of their actions are what count. So look at Nancy Pelosi's Senate district and look real good. Rotten schools, failing infrastructure, abusive police, feces on the streets, mammoth unemployment, fear, hopelessness, and no money. These are the fruits Nancy Pelosi is handing out to the Californians in her own Senate district, and still these victims believe that poor Nancy is helpless to help them and doing her best to lead the good fight. They vote for her faithfully year after year and think that giving her more seniority and power is a good thing, as if more of what doesn't work for 40 years is someday going to deliver different results. This is the way their game is played, upside down and backward. The good are portrayed as bad, and the bad are portrayed as good, but at the end of the day look sharp. Look at the fruits.
Links to Anna's articles and resources can be found in the video description box. Thank you for subscribing, liking and sharing. If you enjoy having Anna's latest articles made into videos, please consider making a purchase from Ed's website sacredintuitiveelements.com. Thank you.